Shining in the rough you are. You just need a little more time and you will get there. Let Denise and you some show will inspire you to pick up yourself and go. You will find it's all you need to do. Reach down inside and find out you're the one. You don't want to fly, yeah. You don't want to read, yeah. You can do all things, just choose it.
Blessings, blessings, blessings to you. I have an amazing guest for you today, author Bernadette Miss B. Willis. But before I bring her on, I'm going to ask you to please like, share, tag, comment, and subscribe. Hello, Bernadette. How are you?
Hi, Denise. How are you? I'm great. So excited.
I'm excited too. I'm excited to have you. And tell us a little bit about Bernadette. What do you do?
Well, my name, I was born, of course, my government's Bernadette Willis, but I call myself Miss B. And Miss B was a nickname that the children had gave to me that I worked with down at Tryon when I was an aide down at Tryon Center. So I have over 10 years of experience in substance abuse counseling. I've been doing that for many years. I come from a perspective of family addiction. So I've worked in many addiction and recovery centers in upstate New York. At one time, I was the supervisor at Green Correctional Facility. So my specialization is in addiction and alcoholism. And my specialization is in family addiction, because that is my personal experience having addiction in the family. So I take the professional, the education, and the personal experience, and I use that to help people by giving them advice and someone to talk to about the challenges regarding family addiction.
Right, right. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Tell my audience and myself about Deborah's Daughter.
Deborah's Daughter. Deborah's Daughter is a book that I published, self-published in 2018 through Sims Books Publishing, and it's a coming-of-age book. I grew up in Roosevelt, Long Island. Shout out to the Rough Riders. And and it tells the story of growing up in Roosevelt. So from about 5 to 12, I just had a great time. There's 5 of us. It was my siblings and I and the neighborhood kids, and we just played outside, you know, double dutch and tag and kickball and having such a great time. I really enjoyed my youth. However, that took a major turn when I turned 12. And the major turn that happened was my mother was addicted to crack cocaine. So as a result of that, our family structure was separated. And I learned a lot from that experience. And so I take from that experience the things that I've learned, and I try to help people. At the time, or not at that time, I was very bitter, very angry, resentful, and I was that way because I didn't understand. Now, I didn't know that I was bitter and angry and resentful because, you know, I'm a Christian and I have my Christian hat on and I'm being a good Christian woman. And I'm thinking, sometimes the blinders are on. But later, as I learned to live life and have a better relationship with my mom, it wasn't until she passed that I got a better understanding of her life and what she went through as a child and as a young adult, a single mother of 5 children. Once I realized that, I started to have empathy toward her. And once I started my healing process, what helped me to forgive her after, her passing was empathy. So I was like, this is a great lesson. Like, there's so many people, we may have that addict or that alcoholic in the family, and they become the scapegoat and they get all the blame and all the attention, the negative attention. But we have to be, it's my opinion, that we have to be empathetic and put ourselves in their shoes in order to understand them, to help for family dynamics. So I basically just take what I have learned from my personal experience, from my professional experience, and my education, and I want to teach others how to be more empathetic towards their family members who are addicts, and just more empathetic in general.
Right, right. So you found out at the age of 12 that your mother was a drug, was an
Was an
addict
addict. Yeah,
at
I
the
found.
age of 12.
Yeah, it was probably more around 14, but 12 was kind of when we were separated. I just know
Okay,
for me, it was just like I said, it was just the time of my life. I loved,
right,
being outside, and my
right,
siblings, brothers there to protect me, my little sister,
right.
and just once that switched. But I guess I didn't want to see it. I think it happened around then, and then you
Right,
realize
right,
stuff, at hindsight. But around,
yeah,
between, about 13, 14 was when I
13.
realized,
Okay,
because it started to take more of a negative effect on our
right,
lives.
right.
Yeah.
So around that time, did you feel like you were lacking in your life?
Well, I didn't feel I was lacking. I just noticed a big significant change. And the
Okay,
big change, to put it with perspective, like from 5 to 12, my mom rented a house. So she rented
okay,
a house, and we had a big backyard, and people would come over and we would visit them. So we went from a house to a room, to living in a room. So it was my
okay,
mom, my sister, and myself in a room. When before it was me, all my siblings, and my mom in a house. So I didn't know anything or feel anything was lacking. I just know that was a significant
change.
change for me, which was
Right,
like a culture shock. And then kind of
right,
later, when the addiction started manifesting more, we became homeless and transient and living from friend
right,
to friend and things of that nature.
right, right.
Yeah.
So, do you believe or you experienced a person's relationship with drugs and alcohol will change over time, like going from a few times a month to everyday necessity? Like it's a
Yes.
necessity. Did you see that with your mom?
Yes, the thing about drugs and alcohol, as most people know, is that everybody's brain chemistry is different and everyone is affected differently. So some people can be functional addicts for years and it not affect their lifestyle or their family. But for me, eventually, it did become that much. I did see the addiction grow with us, because the more the addiction grew, the more our
Right.
family separated, the more,
Separate. Mhm.
yeah. So
Right,
at one time it was just me with my mom, and then at one time it was me and my sister. Then I
right,
was on my own. Then at one time she was on her own. So as the addiction grew, the relationship, our family dynamics definitely changed a lot.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. Having had members of my own family who were battling their own demons with drug addiction, when is enough enough? What is the breaking point? And I ask that question because I believe being empathetic toward with them
Yes.
can unintentionally put them in the place where you are enabling them
Yes.
opposed to helping them.
Yes, yes, yes. One thing, I always get this question. One thing that's important about having an addict in the family is that they're not, if they have to make the choice themselves to want to get help. We can lead them, we can guide them, but they have to have that epiphany themselves. So for the person on the outside, when you're dealing with a loved one, it's basically you have to look within yourself to determine what your boundaries are. You put your boundaries up, and when you just can't have, it's really not a blanket answer. The person has to look within themselves with what they can put up with and what they
Right,
cannot. And
right,
it's like I do teach in empathy, but the number one thing about empathy is to be empathetic with yourself first. So
right,
if you feel that person is using, abusing, taking advantage, and you just can't take it anymore. Because some people have, I always say, uh, the older generation, and I'm talking like my grandmother, people who are in their 70s and their 80s, and I've seen this in other people. It's like they have people that come visit them, and they can be transient, homeless people. And I remember going to visit, and I'm like, why are some people are just very patient, and they're all welcoming of everyone, but everyone is not like that. So the person has to identify for themselves what they can put up with and what they can't, and acknowledge. And you know, there's a joke in the recovery community. It's kind of cruel, but you pick these things up. They say, how do you know an addict is lying? They say, well, they open their mouth. You know, so it's like so it's like you have to be careful. You listen to your intuition, and you have to decide for yourself what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. And you have to keep those boundaries clear. For some people, they have to totally disconnect for their own mental and spiritual well-being, and that's okay, because the person has to do what's best for them. But it really takes having that inventory within yourself, putting up those boundaries.
Right. And that is so true. Even like with myself, I never did drugs or alcohol, but there's other things that I was addicted to. You know, the pattern and activity that surround drug users can be difficult to give up. For example, a smoker might enjoy the habit of having a cigarette.
Yes.
Not the nicotine. Similarly, a drinker might have more trouble saying goodbye to their drinking buddies than alcohol itself. What are some of the patterns or activities that associate with drug users? And I asked the ones that's watching live, put in the comment, give your opinion, give your thoughts as well. So what are the patterns and activity that associate with drug users, as far as, you know?
There's one thing that I used to tell my clients. You know, you would have a lot of people that would come in, and they would be, I guess, in denial, and they might not think that they have a problem. And I would just say, look at the company you're in. When you get an assessment, they alcohol and addiction specialists, they will screen you, and they'll screen you about your family, your social life, your job, your employment. If drugs and alcohol are negatively affecting those areas in your life, then that most likely indicates that you're an addict or alcoholic. What's more important in that is also the relationship with your family. If your family usually confronts you and says, if your family is on you and say, we think you have a problem, they're coming from a place of care and concern, it might be good at that point to get an assessment to find out for yourself. But you know, like, because we all have our vices. Because you have some people, they smoke cigarettes, and they, you know, maybe they'll go to the doctor and they say, well, I have emphysema, I'm going to give this up. Some people, they say, the doctor say, well, you need to stop smoking, and they keep smoking. You got some people, they use eating as a coping mechanism. The doctor says you got to stop eating, or you know, watch your diet, or you're going to get diabetes. Some people still continue to eat. So we all have our vices, and we all have our coping mechanisms. However, for the addict or the alcoholic, they're dealing with the stress is through a substance.
Right.
So
Right. And you know, some people are able, and you touched on it a little bit, some people are able to function adequately and complete their responsibilities, such as work or school, despite having an addiction. How do they function? How do they function?
The brain, the body does an amazing job of trying to heal itself and keep itself together.
Right.
So it does an amazing job with doing that. So just for some people, over time, they've developed the coping mechanisms, and they're very in the resiliency. The addicts are very resilient. Just the resiliency, just over time, they've just created a world around them that allows them to kind of live in the dysfunction. But that's the trick. That's the trick of addiction. It makes you think that everything is all right. And although you may be going to work every day, you may, you know, you may not have a DWI yet, or maybe you just have one, but eventually it will eat up at you. And that's why addiction is so complex, because everybody's brain is different, and everyone, you know, everyone's brain chemistry is different. And handles it differently.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And like many people use drugs as a crutch to help them handle difficult emotions such as anger, depression, and anxiety. These emotions are challenging for everyone and
Yes.
easy escape. What choices does a person have other than drug use?
Okay.
Confronted with the painful emotions.
That is such a good question. There is someone I used to work with, and they have close to 30 years clean, and she was my
Wow.
coworker. And I remember being in the office, said, "What are all these cows up here?" She collects cows, pictures of cows, and um, cow figurines, and it's basically you replace it. You replace the drug with something else, and the more
Right.
healthy things you replace it with, the more easier it'll be. Some people gravitate to the spirituality. Some people gravitate to exercise. It's basically you have to replace it with something else that you love to do. And it may not be just one thing. It may be 2 or 3 things, but you have to basically create a healthy addiction to something else. And then that's how they treat heroin addiction with another substance. Because yeah, it looks like we have a question. You see that, Nisi?
How can you be a help to these who are in denial?
For
Veronica
those,
Altman.
hi, Veronica. For those who are in denial, the best thing you can do is just be there for them. The best you can do is be there for them. For some people, they have to hit rock bottom. For some people that they don't. I kind of equate it to domestic violence. Say if I had a friend who may have been experienced domestic violence, what
Right.
they tend to do is try to separate the person. I always want to be there for that friend. So I eventually they may get it, but you have to be there for them. It's not your job to take them out of denial. Sometimes as good people, and a lot of times as Christian people, we want to do, God's work, but God may be through them on their own for the legalization on their own. Especially me as an older sister, and my sister wouldn't mind me saying that she is a recovering alcoholic. Our relationship was very clashy.
Okay.
And I was always on her about getting help, always on her. And once I gave her that privacy regarding her recovery, our relationship got better and her recovery process got better for her. If that person
Amen.
is in denial, whatever you practice, whether it's spirituality, you pray for them, you be there for them, you put up their boundaries, but it's not our job to take them out of their denial. It's their job to see the pain within themselves and for them to say, now that first step, I'm powerless. And once they can admit that powerlessness, that's when they may accept help. So
Right.
it's not our job to get them out. We can kind of bend them, but it's just my opinion from my experience. As long as you can, just be there for them, because it's not our job to take them out of denial. They have to pull it out for themselves. When they figure it out for themselves, the more likely they are to stay clean.
Right. 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 Wow.
Yes.
Some people say that addiction is a disease and others believe it's a choice. What do you think and why? And those that's watching live, you can answer the question as well.
Addiction is a disease. It is a family disease. It is an inherited disease. This has been proven over and over again. The part about the choice is that a lot of people don't understand because of the manipulative or some of the behaviors of the addict. It
Right.
looks like it's a choice. And for sometimes it is, but it is straight a disease, just like diabetes is a disease, just like HIV is a disease. And so it has to be treated medically like a disease and also spiritually. That's what the 12 steps are. That's why 12 steps work so much, because it's spiritual and it is a disease. There's studies for years that backs this up. Your brain chemistry changes, and it goes from generation to generation. And that's why that was the challenge with the Native Americans, because Native Americans, something in their genes, when they take alcohol, it flips their brain. It flips their brain. So it is, and that's why, some Native Americans, they have struggles with alcoholism. It is by far a disease. You just have to be creative in how you treat it.
Right. Okay. That's good. How do you believe counseling, support groups, or other treatment could help a person who struggles with addiction? How does the treatment, help them?
The treatment helps them in so many ways. Like I mentioned before, when a person gets assessed, and we go through everything, it makes me think of Father Peter Young. Father Peter Young is a priest who recently passed away. He is the founder of the Father Young Housing Industries and Treatment. He does housing. He creates jobs, and he creates treatment programs, and it's called the Three-Legged Stool. He's also responsible for the ASAP program in the New York State Department of Corrections. All those areas have to be addressed: the legal, the family, the spiritual, the social. That's how treatment works. So a lot of people believe, say you have a family member and, they've come to the epiphany that they want help, and they go to treatment and they do 6 or 9 months, and then they come back out and they relapse again. And the family is like, well, what happened? You went to treatment. Most people don't get it right the first time because all those things have to be addressed. Family, psychological, mental health, all that. And it takes a few go rounds. It takes a few treatments for some, not for all, for them to finally get to the root of what led to choosing the substance in the first place. And a lot of that stems from childhood traumas.
Yes. Do you think that you should inform other family members that there is a problem within the family? If so, why? So if you know that somebody else in your family has, on drugs or whatever, do you think that you should tell other family members, or you think it's personal, or how would you handle that?
Okay. All right. So I'm working with someone right now, and this is how I'm helping them. I advise the person is to, again, be there for the person. You don't want to create an environment, like everyone's seen intervention. You don't want to create an environment of an intervention or something that comes across harsh to a person who may not be ready. So it depends on the family. If you come from a strong family and there's maybe 3 or 4 of you, and you guys are very knit and very close, and you are very concerned, and you're like, we love you and we don't want this to happen anymore. You need to go to treatment or we're done. Then you have to mean it. You have to mean it, but you have to, it has to be done very carefully. And that's something that I do. Like I said, I have the experience, I have the education, and I have the personal experience, but that's what I do. And that's why I have my podcast. If you have a family member and you're not sure how to deal with them, you can send me an email and I will be more than happy to give you some advice on how to do that. And then we can, anonymously, of course, and then we can put the tools together to help you and your family members. But it's a very fine line. I wish there was a one-way answer, but everybody is different.
Everybody is different. Right. That's what most things, everybody is different.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a person, someone who recently found out that, well, you actually just answered that one, friend or coworker in use of drugs? What advice would you give the person?
If the person came to you and they said that they realize that they have this problem and they're willing to get help for it, just be ready for a bumpy ride. And I'll tell you, it may get worse before it gets better, but it can get better if the love, or when the love is unconditional, because addiction is very intricate. So what I would advise them is that if this is someone in your life that you plan to have them in your life and they're, you know, you don't want to let them go, be ready for the ride. However, be ready to have those boundaries within yourself to put them up, to be able to still be there for them without it allowing to tear you down, if that's something that you can do. But it can be done. There are a lot of people who are in relationships with addicts, and some, you know, it can be done there. And that's what Al-Anon is for. Al-Anon is a support group for people who have family members with addiction. So if you just Google Al-Anon, ALA-NON, there are a lot of services available, information that is available. Also, the New York State Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse Services, their website has a plethora of information for family members. So help is available. Help is, you don't have to watch your family suffer alone. You don't have to suffer with the addict as they suffer. Again, it's putting up that boundary.
Putting up the boundary.
Yes.
Wow. This is good stuff. This is good stuff. I know that the ones that's watching live and the ones that's going to watch the replay, I know that it was very, very informative to them. And Bernadette, I want to thank you for sharing and appearing on the Denise Newsome Show. I would like to thank my audience for tuning in live and the ones that's going to be watching the replay. Thank you so much. And I ask you to please join us next week. I have a great lineup of singers for you. The Denise Newsome Show first Christmas concert. I am so excited. There will be a flyer coming out real soon. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody. And I ask you to stay safe and have a blessed night. Thank you.
Thank you, Nisi. Good night, everybody. God bless.
God bless.
You just need a little more time.